Well, hello there, people. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I have a couple of different devices happening. And so let me just check a few things. Hi. Oh, yeah, you can hear me. You can hear me just fine. So welcome. If you're catching me on the book that is Face or the tube that is You, it looks like my light's a little funky today, but so be it. It's been a tech thing quite a bit. I don't know what I just got a text from one of my besties. I don't know what she's trying to say to me. So, she's probably asking me to reel it in or something with something because she ends up being, when you get a flow stream and you need like the banks of the river just to help you navigate, she ends up being the banks of my river a little bit. But since I see not a person here, then there's not a problem. Welcome, replay watchers. My name is Christine Blossom Marguerite of Lovevolvenergy / Aligned Light. And what else? What else do I need to say about that? I do meditation, I do energy work, and I do the thing. If you want more information, you can catch that in the information box above or below, depending on what platform you're watching, and take it from there. So give me one sec while I look at some other things, and I think we can do this. Okay. Read it. All right. You go to LA. La 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 la. No problem. No problem. What else do I need to say? Sometimes people need to tell me to reel it in, and then I end up reeling it in on my own. Our topic of conversation today is equanimity. Unflappableness in the face of what have you. Hold on, I have to do one more thing, and then we're going to get into that just a little bit. I have a full day ahead of me, so I want to be mindful of that. But I really do like coming up here once a week. It feels okay. Having been through some stuff, now I'm back on the other side of stuff. And so, hold on, let me check one more thing. So interesting. I was just the one thing I had to check. It's so interesting, isn't it? So let's start with a little bit of personal story before we get into some of the philosophy and technique learning that can be done. I don't think we're going to do practicum only because I prefer to do that live. And I don't really see too many people up here live with me, which is fine. People do what they got to do. One thing I wanted to mention is some of what I'm working on these days, which requires a great deal of equanimity skill. You build a muscle, my equanimity muscle that I've built up to be with. And some of that is, why am I doing these things and who am I talking to when I'm doing them? Ultimately, I'm working with the concept of talking to God. And so let's welcome our goddess or source. So let's welcome in source right now before I even begin. Thank you, source, who has taught me so much in just a very short time that I've been consciously working with this. Thank you, Michael Murdad, by the way. If you don't know who he is, check him out. That's the only place from which I receive those things that I believe that I need for heart and mind, perhaps. So that can be unpacked at a later date, but just an acknowledgement and authenticity that that's where it's at for me. That's where it's at for me. So it doesn't matter who comes to my lives. It doesn't matter who sees me, who does not see me. And I just got a quadruple number time confirmation. So thank you. I just got an 1111, and that's funny because that's my life path number is an 11. So for you numerologists that end up seeing this, now you know. There's lots of things that happen. There's lots of gymnastics that I have to be doing. Hey, Sheila, I'll talk to Source and you. Great. Usually Mrs. Frazee is here with me, but we'll see how it goes. Darlene, good morning, beautiful woman. Thank you. And I know that there's sometimes a little bit of a lag of when the live is actually happening and when it's received through all the interwebs. So there could be a conversation about all things. Here, I just want to. Why do I not have better boundaries? Why do I feel compelled to respond while I'm doing something for myself to others that need me? That's an interesting thing. That's a really interesting thing, isn't it? And that's, that's a later date. Conversations around what are my boundary choices and how am I aware of them and how can I be aware of them without falling on my face and jumping into a rabbit hole negative spiral about whatever arises in my present moment experience. For yay forsooth, whatever's arising has to do with your perception of the moment. Rarely what is actually happening in the moment. It's more accurately true unless we have decades of meditation practice and work really hard at it. And I do. And yet I still fumble and do this. Just so everybody knows that as I offer these things and teachings and experiences, I'm still working on it, guys. This is not perfection. This is practice or practicum. I think boundaries is a big issue today because I'm feeling lots of that happening here. All right, so that. How do I not even make peace? How do I sit with my perceptions of the present moment, which can be my thoughts about what's arising, my emotional state around what's arising, all the stories, right? And right now I have mental stories happening and an emotional response to those stories. If you're doing an intensive program like I am assisting right now in Body of Design, that as well. It will call things up. Life itself is its own intensive program, particularly as it has emerged in 2020 and 2021. And let's see how the nexting goes next. I know what happens next is your conversation with your own version of source. That I know. So get excited about that. So let's talk about the present moment and how the essential skill of witness consciousness / equanimity, perhaps witness consciousness is another way to talk about this, helps you be with and navigate within the present moment as it arises bit by bit by bit. Whether the past is bulldozing its way into your present moment, which it is for most of us, by the way, unconsciously, because that's how a physical body functions on the planet. Or perhaps the neocortex thinking human mind can project into the future and create its own spin and stories about that. So and that can become part of your present moment. And then suddenly your present moment's pretty crowded. Do we notice the crowd control issues here in the present moment? From past, from present. Do we notice this? Yeah, we notice this. And what's the interesting thing that happens when, as you speak your own truth, for sure, that's a response reaction from perception of the present moment. So, okay, so I'm just setting the stage. What do we do with all this? What? Okay, yay, we're aware of it. Congratulations. That's a BFD, people. That's a BFD. I'm aware. I'm aware of this stuff rising up. Sometimes I slide down into the past, unpleasant emotion, take my hot air balloon up into the future, unhelpful things for really being with the present. And P.S., why are we in the present? Who else is in the present with us? Me, myself, and I, and divine source energy, your God, your goddess, Arpita. Speaking of goddess energy, there she is. How's it going, Lady Pants? How's it going? So that's just setting the stage. And there we are in the present with all of our conditioned perceivings, our projections, our aspirations. Like I said, the present moment is getting pretty crowded. We are aware of this. Yay. First step, be aware. Be aware. Slipped into the past. Oh, eventually you be aware of that and you'll be like, oh, what did I do? That's an important moment. Do not overstep that moment. That is your moment of waking up. Key. Those beginning moments. And let me tell you, those beginning moments of waking up will happen for the rest of your life. That is the nature of incarnation. Can I get an amen on that? Hallelujah. Yes, indeed. Oh, look at all the beautiful people here. And so I'm seeing, so in my present moment, I will get to equanimity / witness consciousness in just a moment, because more of my experience, right? Like I am, what's crowding into my present moment right now are different things that different guides and teachers, incarnated and not incarnated in a body and not in a body, in this 3D-dimensional time-space reality, have said to me. So that comes through hearing and that comes through seeing. And I have although it's lightning quick, I have an emotional response to this of pleasant. And then I have other thoughts that go in after that. How do I communicate this? This is all happening. So this is, while I'm speaking to you, it's lightning fast. What we call this in mindfulness training, how to be aware of the present moment. That's essentially what mindfulness is. One of the skills is equanimity, awareness of the present moment. We will do a class on this on the 26th or 28th. Does anybody remember? It's on that Saturday, the end of the month, where we're talking about what I just mentioned. The more you can slow down and pay attention to what's coming in through through the internal talk, through internal sight, etc., all of these, this internal sight, this internal feel of emotions, this internal hearing of your thoughts, this is all awareness of mind stuff. Other arrows, other things on top of that. layering it as you slow down and really pay attention to these things, which requires equanimity and witness consciousness, by the by. You begin to really hone your ability to have clarity in the present moment. You hone the sensitivity of your sense gates. If you slow down and really do that with intention, as you come off of your meditation time, space, practice, it becomes second nature. It takes a minute. Some of you are already doing this. I guarantee you. And it takes a minute. It takes a minute so that you can come to the present moment and see how crowded it is. How crowded it is. Not a problem. Not a problem. If we're sitting in equanimity, it's not a problem. My other teacher, Kyle Cease, says, this is happening. I'm perceiving this in my present moment, and I love this. And I love this. Creates a little wedge. There might be a little more emotionality on that. There's certainly more acceptance if you put the tagline, and I love this, on the end of it. Check out Kyle Cease. He has a lot of conversations about this. People are overhearing me right now, so I'm just going to take a little breath and a little sippy sip. What it takes to get some privacy around here, it's a circus. Just saying. Yes, 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 yes. Anyway, endlessly, I'm watching the present moment arise and what my habitual patterns of awareness, witness, consciousness do. I'm going to say that again. Habitual patterns of equanimity. Habitual patterns of awareness of the present moment. Habitual patterns of witness consciousness. When we first start to build this muscle, it can be maddening because you begin to see the three things circus that is your mind in the present moment. That's important. Yes, it can get slower, softer, more pleasant. All the good things. It can become all the good things. And yet, it is its tendency and its nature. What we do with meditation practice is begin to train the puppy that is the mind. Not the activity of it, but the habitual patterns with how to be with the present moment. Not what arises in the present moment, how we are. It trains the how. It trains the how of being with the present moment, with equanimity, witness consciousness. So I think we're ready. Now that I've unpacked all my crap, let's go into the next thing. I know this is probably something that is already, for people that end up being drawn to me or pay attention to what I'm offering, aside from Source herself. Thank you, Source. I feel her lifting me up, and I can just keep going on and on with what's happening in the present moment. I don't need to explain everything. That's my private conversation with my present moment here, which, again, in itself is source energy. So witness consciousness, training the mind to have a taste for, to be inclined towards equanimous witness consciousness. Equanimous, big word. It is something like unflappableness, neutrality, not disassociation, which has a cold, hard wedge in it, more dispassion. Not but something else. I can't quite recall what that word is right now. You're still fully present. You're not disassociating in any way. You have increased your capacity to sit with calm awareness and acceptance, a state of acceptance, a radical acceptance of the moment as it arises. No, this doesn't mean passiveness and passivity. If you're radically accepting the present moment, you can take quick and fierce action from a more clear place, not from fear. From a clear, equanimous, this action happens now place. Unencumbered by baggage. We'll just call it baggage from the past and the future. Equanimity is something we practice. Being with witness consciousness, with the present moment, increases not only your capacity to act, your capacity to have more joy and delight in the moment as it arises, because you're not attaching to anything. It's all okay. Or it's not okay, and then something else happens, and it's okay that it's not okay. Are you getting the flavor? Are you getting the scent that I'm talking about here? I can talk about it till I'm blue in the face. It's something through techniques that you actually, once you have a couple of experiences of it, you're like, oh yeah, that. Oh yeah, that. What I would call the emotional quality associated with it is peacefulness, is peace. And so, peacefulness, peace. Sorry, there's no sorry. I'm distracted by the three ring circus of my life. I think it's a 5 ring. It's about to be an 8 ring circus. So, just saying, this is what it is right now. How do we increase our capacity to be with the present moment exactly as it arises, without thwarting it, without needing it to be anything other than exactly what it is? Something to continually move towards. It's an endless abode, a Brahma Vihara, an endless expansion of love and an expression of love. Let me give a few more examples, and then we'll talk about some techniques of how to finally get a taste of that. Eventually, in the months, perhaps years to come, depending on what happens, we'll do a day long just on this practice. It's fascinating, right? And it is a practice. It's not something that you do a couple of practices with it and then you're like, oh yeah, got it. It's something that's a lifetime work, like yoga or eating well. You can't just eat well for a week and then expect lifelong health. Like, it just doesn't. Consistency is what's beneficial in my experience. Don't take my word for it. I'm just telling you my opinion here, my experiences. You take what feels good to you, and then you run with it. You take that ball and then you embrace it, or you don't. I have other friends talking to me. All right. An example of where this is really beneficial in others that you may notice are really skilled doctors in emergency rooms. Some chaos is happening. Somebody's about to lose a life. There's family around. And the skilled doctor She can see clearly what's happening. She can react with the appropriate amount of kindness with people, the family, and appropriate amount of focus and skill with what she can bring to the situation for the benefit of all. You probably don't want your emergency room doctor to not have a high level of equanimity, to freak out and stress out and run into a spiral so that she cannot function with what's before her, so that she does a mental emotional damage to the family and people around her as she's helping to save lives. In an ideal place, this is beneficial. There are very few situations where high levels of equanimity are not beneficial. I would say all. I would say all. When you're going through a lot of your own internal triage and emotional stuff, where your internal state is an emergency room situation, that aspect of you that you have contacted, enhanced, trained, worked with so that it's in a mind state pattern, which activates an emotional body state patterning, repatterning, retraining the mind. It gives you a larger capacity to be with yourself in your emergency room situation, with your emotional experience, with your mental experience in that moment. Equanimity. When you notice a proliferation of negative thinking streaming through your mind, when your affirmations just aren't cutting it, and they're this tiny little voice, may I be happy? I am that which is joy and clarity of heart, compared to the giant negative voices that are slamming you. It's a good time to somehow, in that emergency room situation, in that internal three-ring circus of the present moment, to have access to witness consciousness, a state of calm acceptance and equanimity with what arises. You may get knocked off the block. If you can, one, use techniques to train your mind to have equanimity as an option, kind equanimity, upeka, upekka, to have equanimity as an option. What was the other thing? Let me have a little sip. To have equanimity, my present moment just threw a bunch of stuff. So let me refocus here. Thank you for sharing mind. That's one of the phrases. Perhaps that's why that stuff happened for me. If you have to go manual and the habit of equanimity is not there for you, that's a good thing. Praise for that. Negative thoughts are coming up. There's an aspect of you, if you pay attention to your heart and your mind, it's not the only thing that's happening there. If you can remember to mention to yourself, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. I radically accept that. Now is not the time for me to sit and be with this voice of pain that is trying to protect me and feeding me negative thoughts about myself. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate your input and feedback. Now is not the time. Now I'm doing a live. Now I'm sitting in meditation and I'm focusing on this other thing. Now, this is not helpful. What is more helpful? Something else. In those moments, going on manual, plucking yourself out of that situation. What we're looking to do is to identify that the essence of who you am, of who you are, your I am in that moment is not your thoughts. Yay, people, it is not even your emotions. It's not completely your body. These are aspect expressions of source energy. In those moments, it is not you. None of it is you. The thoughts come and they go. If you can sit, and we've already unpacked equanimity, if we can sit in this place of fullness and equanimity, witness consciousness, and just watch the ping pong game of thoughts happening here, you begin to disidentify and you don't see them as you. They begin to lose their charge. And eventually, because they are impermanent like everything else, they fade. It may take 2 minutes. It may take 2 years. Don't have to believe me. Go practice. They fade. They may come back, but they will go. There is nothing will be permanent about the activity of the mind. Where we start to freak out when we're doing deeper work and we uncover, and all this stuff comes down from the attic and emerges from the dungeon, and the present moment gets really crowded, we begin to think that's who we are. We begin to cling onto and identify with the woundedness. It's not helpful. The healing of the woundedness does not happen within the context of the woundedness. Within the context of the woundedness, you loop. What the woundedness, because there is suddenly more equanimity and more love in you, it will arise because it will have the opportunity to be seen. The seeing of the contents of the attic and dungeon is healing. It wants to be seen. It wants the loving quality of witness consciousness. It sniffs out that is then available. All right, let's go. The woundedness, it's not that you can change the past. It's not that it didn't happen. It did. And it's not happening now. We lovingly accept the events of history, our personal history, as they begin to really crowd into our present moment. And sometimes there's a lot. There's a lot. Anyway, I can go on and on about this. I really do have to be mindful of my time because I have something happening at noon that is not this. I want to save time for questions, which will everybody, when I was up last week, people were really curious about when I mentioned equanimity practice and what that is. If you follow Lauren, one of my besties, you know she speaks about equanimity these days, and I believe she got the word from me. She may not have, I don't know. She's also talking about dharma and karma, which are also Buddhist words, and having her own interpretations of those. which is awesome. So let's talk about a few techniques, some skill building. When I talk about techniques and skill building, what I'm talking about is training the mind. How do you do this? I am not the only one that has these trainings and these skills. I have learned from my teachers. These have been handed down to me, and I use them and develop them in my own particular way that work for me. And so it's most helpful if you desire to increase your capacity to be with witness consciousness in the present moment, the desire to increase your bandwidth of equanimity with which to be mindful in the present moment. It is most helpful to increase that muscle of equanimity when things are not triage, chaotic, emergency room, internal state. Not the best time to begin that practice. A great time to employ the skills and muscles that you have built. Not the best time to begin building the skills. There is a technique of what we call trigger practice, where we intentionally go into a meditative state, first within a positive feel, with the intention of dragging up things from the dungeon and down from the attic, and intentionally strengthening your equanimity with those things. It's a way of healing and purging and freeing all of that crap, loving, beautiful stuff, damaged, woundedness. That's a specific technique that I wouldn't practice right off the bat. If you find yourself in that state, so be it. That's where you're at. If you find yourself in a relatively clear mental, emotional place, great time to say, hey, of the three skills, concentration, power, sensory clarity, and equanimity, of those three foundational skills for being a human being, I believe, those are the foundational skills of mindfulness. And yeah, I get a little bit technical with stuff because I think it's clear and helpful. So that's my approach. That's how I do it. Equanimity. A way to practice equanimity with internal talk. Equanimity with emotional states. It's helpful to have sensory clarity. But if you don't, that's okay too. Cultivate first an awareness of breath as a way to begin concentration and begin to find, perhaps your breath is hyperventilating and that would not be your go-to. What you want to cultivate first is cool, peaceful calmness. In the practice in which I practice now, the word that is used is shamatha, and that's a Pali word. You don't need to use that. Peacefulness. How to cultivate peacefulness? Usually the inhale is a cool breath that can cool hot emotions and heat within the mind. I just did a healing session that you can find on my website or my podia on fire, for example. Cooling breath. Cooling breath. From that, moving into observation mode. So let's say you sit down, you get pretty relaxed, you're pretty chilled, literally chilled and cooled out. And then your intention is to bear witness to the activity of the mind. That happens with sound and sight. Picture, movie memories, sight, internal talk, internal music, other sounds, sounds that appear to come from inside, but they are not happening through your actual ears. They're happening through how your brain has been trained to pay attention to internal talk. No worries. We're going to be working on this at the end of August, the 26th, on the day-long meditation. Sensory clarity, clarity of hearing. So you decide to go in. Here comes the thought. You just simply wait. You wait like a mouse at a cat hole, or cat at a mouse hole, whoever you decide to be. You wait patiently. You wait. You simply wait with gentle, open awareness and see what wants to arise in the internal talk. What arises? You may be flooded. It may take 20 minutes for any thought to appear, because sometimes, as the cat is watching the mouse hole, the mouse is really still and not stirring. Eventually, the mouse will scurry, it will stir, and perhaps leave the hole. That's what the cat is waiting for. However, you as the cat within equanimity, witness consciousness, do not pounce on the mouse. This is where the metaphor fails, and we have to drop the metaphor right there. We simply watch it arise. Then we may notice, secondarily, there's an emotional response to that thought, to that internal talk, or a picture arises. Oh, I just saw that internally. I just heard that. See, hear, or simply note it. You may say it out loud. You may say it internally to you. Don't have to be perfect. Do not have to be perfect. Thought. Ooh, emotions arose to that thought. I feel something. You could get more specific. Oh, here, I just heard a thought. I just heard words. Here. Ooh, I just saw a picture. See. Here. Feel. Here. Feel. See. See. And you simply just label what's going on, bearing witness to the events of the mind. Stage 1, what's there? Eventually, with enough hours, logging in enough time with that practice, it may be easy for you to simply, peacefully, equanimously rest in awareness with the arisings. And then you may get curious and begin to turn the awareness, the witness, towards itself. What is witness? What are the elements of witness consciousness? So then, rather the witness looking externally at the mind, the witness turns the arrow back and begins to become aware of itself. That's when equanimity begins to deepen, or not. This is a basic technique. There's a favorite story I have, and I don't remember who told it to me. of these Tibetan Buddhist monks were visiting America. And the host was American and taking care of them and showing them around before their teaching retreat was about to happen. I'm really slaughtering this story, but this is the gist. The important part of the story is that the host, the American host, took these monks to a big river near her house and, said, feel the water and explore around here. And of course, the heavily trained monks were open to experience. And they began, one of them began to walk into the water along with the host, and began saying things. At first, that monk said, cold, cold, cold. And then the monk began, as they began to walk deeper and deeper, began to say, fear, 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 fear. The host retold this story as an example of a practiced meditator, this monk, who was aware of the present moment and the emotional state that was larger than this monk could bear witness to, be with equanimity with. And so the monk's choice was to name out loud the emotional state of fear, the physical feel state of cold, etc., etc. And so in big moments, when our mental state is loud and our emotional state is loud, the teaching of the story is that why not try labeling aloud what's arising? The emotional state, the thought. You might say, hear words, hear song, hear sound, or simply hear. You simply notice what's there. You don't have to be perfect of it. You may jump on the train of that thought and start to ride it. Suddenly you're riding that thought, and suddenly the thought becomes a story, and suddenly you're hearing all the words, you're having a conversation, there's other voices, and suddenly you're in the circus ring of that story of thought. And then you wake up and you're like, holy amazeballs, this is what's happening. Oh, thank you all for sharing. Thought, story, thought. I set you free. You jump off the train, you come back to the present moment. You don't jump on the train. Or when you've jumped on the train, you jump back off. That strengthens the skill of witness consciousness equanimity because you keep going back to it. You do not identify with thoughts, emotions, and the stuffness that arises in the present moment. You are now the witness, bearing witness. You identify with conscious witness now. You identify with equanimous presence now, bearing witness to the arisings in the present moment. And you find out a lot. You discover a lot. So I got to go soon. Are there any questions? I'm going to go back to the feed. Thank you for joining me on Facebook and the tube that is you. I appreciate everybody that was here. Yes. Yes, Darlene. Yes. And I love that Darlene just mentioned spaciousness, spacious awareness. If you're following my Awakening the Body Deva, the very first week we talked about the element of ether, the correlate to the am I wrong? No, element of air. which was 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, is spacious wisdom, is a spaciousness of mind. It can be a Tibetan Buddhist, Vajrayana Buddhism, really gorgeous archetypal charged thought. Thank you, Darlene, for bringing that up. So wise of you, Darlene. Spacious awareness, sky-like wisdom, equanimity, witness consciousness with what is. And then we fall into and become sky-like wisdom. That's the story metaphor that's so gorgeous and can be helpful. I think you guys got it. If you're in Body of Design, this chat will be super helpful for you. I'll do a brief chat about this in the Body of Design with Lauren Antrafermo and Lauren Olivia, the Lola. Speaking of Lola, there's a retreat for Lola the end of September, and I will be teaching there. Not this. I will be taught, well, not that equanimity is not important. It always is for things that arise, particularly within retreat. The arising of. Anyway, so I will be teaching a movement meditation with the elements in the body. And how can we be more embodied with equanimity? How can we dance and let it flow through us? How can we be in stillness, slow motion peace with the elements as they talk to our body consciousness, which is the body deva. Anyway, that's my work this summer. That's what I'll be offering in a retreat format with Lauren Olivia and Lauren Antrafermo and their offerings. They have their own offerings there. So look at their pages where they begin to describe what they're channeling and bringing through. They're talking a lot about Gaia energy. And me being a detail person, I'm unpacking it in my own particular way. So it's going to be gorgeous. It's going to be exciting. And join me for Sensory Clarity day-long workshop retreat on the, you know what? Let's get the date right for that. I got to go do my other thing, but I just want to be clear. Find me a Saturday. It's the 28th of August. We're going to be talking about that. All right. If you do have questions, if you've been catching this on the replay, just post them here. Tomorrow's Thursday, and I'm a lot more on the book that is Face on Mondays and Thursdays. So if you don't hear from me for a couple of days, that is why. I'm really creating a strong boundary around what's happening there. So that is that. I love you guys so much. I love you all. And what else do I want to say? My mind is already going to my next thing because I have something in about 3 minutes. All right. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing up for yourself. And I want to thank Source Energy for co-creating this moment with me. The series of moments. Blessings. Thank you so much. All right. I'll see you in a couple of weeks where we talk about the water element. And that's going to be on Soulful Connections and Evolve Within Love group. So I'll be here for that. All right. I'm emerging out of my cocoon and just trying to dry off my wings here. All right. I love you guys. Catch you on the flip.